Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
I am getting antsy. Feels like this week will never end. We're just 2 days from Rutgers. It's so close. It's so close. You can taste the Rutgers. Tastes like bagels and air pollution.
I was going to say, tastes like turnpike. Tastes like exits. Yes, Rutgers week, the most famous week on the calendar for years, Tom. You remember back in the day where it would be Rutgers week and we'd get to the WAC and sit down and hear stories from Earl Bruce about Rutgers and what the rivalry meant to him. And just, how many senior tackles, Tom, have we been at where Earl Bruce would talk about what it means to just play in this rivalry?
Yeah, it is the very first week in college football history was a Rutgers week, and it's basically been just the most consistent part of college football ever since. So, are you familiar with the history of Rutgers and why it's called Rutgers? That's
go ahead.
I feel like that might be. I might have to do some quick Googling because I have not heard this story in many years. This is there was a Civil War. I'm going to say Colonel Henry Rutgers.
That's fake.
No, I think it's entirely true. I am almost positive, in fact. This is the kind of thing I definitely could have planned on since I did know they were playing Rutgers.
Yes, that's
Rutgers.
That's a fake ID name.
He donated a bond valued at $5,000 to reopen what was Queens College in New Brunswick, New Jersey. And they they named the school after him. It used to be Queens College. Now they named it Rutgers. And I'm just going to read from Wikipedia, which is the source for all great information. In gratitude and hoping the college would be remembered in the colonel's will, the trustees renamed it Rutgers College on December 5th, 1825. Next sentence. Parentheses. Colonel Rutgers left nothing to the college upon his death. So even the name of the university is a reminder that Rutgers has a long, long, long history of taking L's. That's one of those stories you hear when you grow up in New Jersey and grow up on the East Coast, and it's like, I feel like that's an underappreciated part of this whole story, that the entire name of the university is just the lingering fallout from Rutgers taking an L about 170 years ago.
I think the true legacy of Rutgers football, though, Tom, is they played the first collegiate game ever. It did not look much like football. And today, throughout this 150 years later, Rutgers football still does not look much like football. And that's really the great legacy of this amazing state university of New Jersey, don't you think?
Yeah, it is. They scored. Did they win the first game or lose the first game? It was 6-4. I think they lost the first game, I believe, to Princeton, and 6-4. I mean, if anything has qualified them for being hashtag B1G from day one, a 6-4 game is right at the top of that list.
And we know Greg Schiano has. We've got some other stuff to talk about, but Greg Schiano, when he was there the first time in the Big East, had his eyes set on the Big Ten. Now, when his eyes were set on the Big Ten, there was no Urban Meyer, so it was much easier to win Big Ten back when he was first wanting to get in there. Like Urban Meyer was in the SEC at that point, and or Utah. When Greg Schiano was like, "Gosh, if I could just get Rutgers into the Big Ten," and then there are no, like, Ohio State is elite because nobody else is elite. And then he gets here and it's like, well, now Ohio State is at a much higher level. And now you got to deal with Indiana, Michigan State, Penn State, Maryland, just those programs in the East. That's all they really have to focus on, because we know they're kind of like Michigan and Rutgers, basically like mirror images. So if you could just get over that mirror image, which they already have before. Mm-hmm. So it's like, they've already climbed that mountain, although, Tom, to call it a mountain.
I do need to correct myself. This is this episode presented by Wikipedia. Rutgers 6, Princeton 4 in that first game. Yeah. It was November 6th, 1869. So Friday is the anniversary of the first Rutgers win in college football history. Rutgers, since that was, I believe, the only game played that year, I believe they'd be national champion. Surprised they don't claim it.
Alabama would, Michigan would.
Alabama probably does.
I think that's true. That's true. Well, if nobody else is going to claim it, we're going to claim it. Just a couple more claims here, if I could. That's an inside joke for people on the Ohio State beat. Tim May being from Alabama and always asking extra questions. So, but now it's an outside joke.
Now it's an outside joke. The best kind of joke.
So, yes, we did talk to Ryan Day today for the Thursday lightning round, like 10, 15 minutes of just rapid fire, one question and out. And if you ask a second question, you're going to get a dirty look and possibly not get called on the next week. So there was, it was certainly more informative than the radio show. So we don't really need to get into the radio show. But the thing that stood out for me most, Tom, that I want to get into right now is Justin Hilliard's false positive from last week, where he took the antigen test and it came back that he was positive. So they did the PCR test to confirm or deny and came back negative. But the Big Ten rule is that doesn't mean that you can now play. It just means that you don't have COVID. You can be on the sideline, but you can't play. And the way Ryan Day explained it on the radio show, I know I just dissed the radio show, but he did say on the radio show that the Big Ten is on the verge of fixing that problem possibly this week. And basically the issue is not every Big Ten campus was equipped with the ability to get those PCR test results, I guess, as quickly as some places. And so out of fairness for all, there's no testing out of a false positive and playing on a game day. And this is, as we were talking before the show, Tom, this is very Big Ten. It's the same reason you can't have fans. It's because it's not fair for some, because some places have the state government allows more fans than other state governments. And so it's like, well, then no fans. And this is the same issue where the Big Ten schools, not all of them have the equipment that Ohio State has. And so Justin Hilliard didn't get to play because Maryland probably doesn't have something, or Rutgers doesn't have something. So you're talking about a 6th-year senior who only has so many games left and has missed already so many games throughout his career, had to stand on the sidelines, not because of what, Ohio State, not because of something he did, but because of something that other schools can't do.
Yeah, and this is kind of the fundamental mindset of the Big Ten in everything, which is everyone has to be equal in absolutely everything, no matter what, and that's how it is. And there are areas in which that's probably a good thing. I mean, you look at how Texas having some sort of special treatment in the Big 12 has led to all sorts of issues in that league over the years. And, it's probably the good all for one and one for all thing is probably good in terms of, TV, money, distribution, and all that the conference really is kind of all at the same level, and it's not multiple different tiers within the same conference and all that. But I mean, everyone likes to pretend that this is all for the benefit of the student athlete. Like I'm not sure how the student athlete benefits by having to sit out when you have acknowledged by allowing him on the sidelines that he is not, that this is not a problem, that there is not really an issue here. So I don't know why, you have to let perfect be the enemy of the good. Like perfect would be everyone has access to all of this, and therefore, all of the same levels of, my assumption is just like test processing, like that there are just some places where you have to send it out to a lab and you can't get it back quick enough or something like that. And I don't know why you have to let the fact that some people might get hung up by a false positive be something that keeps you from letting, forcing everyone to get hung up by false positives. If you are confident enough that the player can stand on the sideline, then there's no reason to hold the player out of the game. It's not like the player did anything wrong. The player, what do they do? Spit in a test tube or something, like the instant test. The player did not do anything wrong in order to test false positive. It's a testing issue. It's not a player issue. It's not, he broke curfew, or he did something that might have caused him to be exposed that he wasn't supposed to do. He broke protocols in some way. It's literally just the test screwed up, not the player. So, this is just one of these, like, I get the all for one for all. I get the fairness and equality and yada yada yada, but like this is a really 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 stupid way to enforce that.
Yeah, because it's not about fairness for the player at all. It's about fairness for opposing coaches, because they they can't do this test, or they might have to play against a person that shouldn't be playing or whatever. Or it's just the coaches so much scream about fairness, and even Ryan Day keeps talking about it's the same for everybody. So you just deal with it, and yet it's. I don't think any players from Illinois would be like, "Gosh, Justin Fields shouldn't be playing because of a false positive," and yet it's the coaches who are the ones who are having Justin Hilliard out there. And in case I've said Justin Fields, I apologize, but having Justin Hilliard out there makes things tougher for other coaches or the opposing coach. And so generally coaches are just going to side on the idea of, yeah, no players, like hold the players down because it makes my job easier if I don't have to face that player. And yes, now the same thing could happen to your team, but it's just it has nothing to do with the fairness for the players or the player experience or the student experience. It's all about coaches. I'd rather just not face those players, or it makes my job easier if Ohio State does not have another 5-star linebacker out there. And when I ask Ryan Day, like, how does the Big Ten justify how do they justify ruling this player out but allowing him on the sideline? His answer was, well, it was agreed upon before the season. And there's no mention of logic or why this rule was. And it was just agreed upon. And because Barry Alvarez can't do it, then nobody else should be, or whomever. And it's a childish thing where, well, if I can't have it, nobody should. And then you break it. Like Tom, I know, like when you're a kid, you're jealous of your friends and they had a green machine and they're riding it around the street, and you're just like, you're looking at your stupid big wheel and it's like, man, I can never keep up. I'm so tired of that. And then one day your friend like leaves their green machine out in their yard, and you happen to, take a sledgehammer to it, and nobody sees you. Nobody is the wiser, but now you are happier because that is no longer in the picture, and you no longer have to be embarrassed by that as you guys are racing down the street. And so now you've eliminated that. And that's what you do. Remind me of Barry Alvarez. I'm just going to say it.
Oh man, interim Rose Bowl podcast host, here I come. It's going to be amazing. Here's the thing I don't get about that. Like, let's just assume we're correct about the reasoning behind this. And it has to be fair for everyone. If this week Rutgers has a false positive and Ohio State has a false positive, and the issue is access to testing facilities or testing kits or whatever, it would seem that Ohio State, if Rutgers did not have access to the testing kits or whatever, or the testing facilities to do it, Ohio State could provide that for them if Ohio State has access for it. So if the starting left tackle for Rutgers and the starting left tackle for Ohio State both test positive for COVID early, before the game, and then both are confirmed by PCR tests, they could both be confirmed by PCR tests later in the day to be false positives. There's no reason to hold both of them out. They can both play as long as Rutgers has access to the same, level of testing and turnaround time on testing and access to testing that Ohio State does. There is no competitive advantage there. It's just letting the guys who are really healthy get out there and play. It's just completely nonsensical and like the appearance of fairness above any level of common sense. And the ironic thing is that the fact that the Big Ten is so hell-bent on having this like exact equality across the deck puts it all of its teams at a massive competitive disadvantage compared to all the other conferences which are not doing this. There's the 21-day holdout protocol that no one else is doing. That now I've read stuff recently that a lot of the myocarditis concerns probably were extremely overblown and probably not. That it's something that doctors are saying, yeah, players should be able to test out of that and not have to have that extra week, but they still have that extra week. So you have, Wisconsin could miss 3 games. They could miss 3 games and therefore not qualify for the Big Ten championship game because they will not have played the 6 games before that they would need to, because A, the Big Ten didn't leave any extra weeks in its schedule, and B, the Big Ten made this like overly punitive holdout policy that is right now, from what I understand, not really based on medical science and just based on being overly cautious based on what is probably now outdated information. And, for a league that is interested in being fair to everyone, that seems pretty unfair to Wisconsin and a whole lot of other people.
There's a television graphic going around last week of the various conferences and their protocols and how many days out somebody would have to be. And the Big Ten is 21. Other conferences are like 14. The ACC is 10 days. The Big 12's protocol just was question marks because they hadn't released their protocols to the media, which is like, granted, I don't cover any of those schools, but it seems like people should know that. And the fact that it's just question marks, I guess it really kind of is the Wild West out there. But yeah, I don't understand why the Big Ten didn't make this available for everybody like initially, and now it sounds like Ryan Day said that hopefully by the end of the week it won't be an issue any longer. But to not have this thought ahead of the idea of false positives when everybody knows false positives have been around since testing has been around, I guess maybe they just felt like, you know what, it's cheaper, obviously, to not have to deal with fixing the false positives, and it's too expensive if other schools don't have it to then figure out a way to get that done. But it appears as though they are going to get it done and just swallow whatever costs they incur. It's just another example of the Big Ten being what it is. But then, Tom, the Big Ten is what it is, and they bring in all kinds of money. So it's hard to fault them for their overall thought process and actions, but there's still plenty of little things here and there to criticize the Big Ten for, and this is just another one of the many.
Sounded like you were arguing for a BTN contributorship there for a minute, and I was like, "Oh man, I think those are all taken." Sorry, but then you pulled out of it at the end. That was good. That was good. Yeah, there's a bunch about this that's just kind of like, when you really look at it, it's like the Big Ten has sort of set itself up to fail here. And when this all got announced that, the Big Ten's coming back, I think everyone was just kind of excited that this is going to happen. And even then, I remember talking to you and I think we were willing to let an awful lot of it go, just the fact that there was going to be a football season this year. But I do remember talking to you about the fact that the fact that there's no off weeks here, and they need to play 8 games in 8 weeks and then another one. So it's really 9 games in 9 weeks with no off weeks built in. Like the original schedule had a bunch of off weeks built in so that if someone tested positive, like, well, you didn't automatically lose like a third of your season. And this one, there's no plan B. It's just plan A straight, full steam ahead. And, this has been a plan B, plan C, plan D kind of year. And not having that built in was sort of setting the league up to fail. And with Wisconsin is kind of the good example right now. Like they seem like they have fallen right into the trap. And that, I think my understanding is that all started with one false negative test. That's it. That was it. And now they may not qualify for the Big Ten championship game just because of one false negative test that led to spread, which then led to players not being able to, not enough guys being able to play. And then now you're missing 3 weeks.
Well, I mean, they do have enough guys to play, but
yes,
might be down the list on the quarterback depth chart. But now there are rumors that if Wisconsin can't play next week, they're just going to shut it down. And I don't know if that's for the best or what, but it would give some teams some bye weeks. I did hear Columbus radio saying, well, then they can just move teams around and then nobody has to miss any time, except, Tom, if Wisconsin shuts it down, you have an odd number of teams. And so therefore one team is still going to have to sit out every week. So it doesn't really fix anything. If people are thinking that, nothing would change. It would just, if you're playing Wisconsin that week, you're off. And
well, and yeah, if let's say I know there have been some cases in Illinois. So hypothetically, Illinois can't play 1 week. So whoever was supposed to play Wisconsin and whoever was supposed to play Illinois could play potentially, maybe. But yeah, I mean, it is not a clean, easy solution if just one team is not playing. There may be some other teams that are pretty much willing to shut it down right now. So,
well, and as we said before the season, those are the teams you have to worry about if you're Ohio State or if you have goals that are larger than just the typical, wanting to win the Big Ten. It's those teams who no longer have anything to play for. Who was the player just this past week that got busted for OWI after the game? And you're like, hopefully,
I think it was Iowa, somewhere in Iowa.
Yeah, yes, it was. It was an Iowa receiver, and it's like, well, not that you're hoping any type of DUI, but it's like, hopefully, you're going from your friend's house home, and you're not. Well, we were out at the bar, we were out at the club, and that's the kind of letdown that could impact Ohio State, and it wouldn't even be them, as we talked about for the season, Michigan State. Like Michigan State is going to screw this up for somebody. We didn't know they were going to screw it up for Michigan.
They did the non-COVID bear trap that Michigan stepped into. Yeah, I think we came in with the idea that this was going to be a Maryland, Rutgers, Michigan State, Illinois, like the teams that have been really bad. And Iowa is a team that has not had a great start to this year and has had some off-field stuff that is, the culture there is probably not super healthy right now. Again, that's the kind of team where you can have that. And Ohio State is a team that is uniquely focused, I think, at this point. That they have had, they are about as laser focused as you can be. You start to wonder about Penn State. Penn State's 0-2. They're functionally, they're essentially completely out of the running for the Big Ten East title at this point because they are 0-2 and 2 games behind 2 teams who they've both have lost the tiebreaker to. So functionally, you're 3 games behind already 2 weeks into the season. Not great. Not looking fantastic for their title hopes. And you wonder, it only takes a couple guys to kind of wander off the reservation and make a big problem for everyone. So yeah, I am going to be interested to see how that goes. There every week there's a few games that get canceled, and this is a point that we've made before. But there are a lot of games that are not canceled, so you can't just focus on the games that are canceled. But you lose a game or two here or there from what is already a relatively short season, and then all of a sudden it's when people are looking at resumes, this is probably not as much of a concern for Ohio State. I think Ohio State's going to get the benefit of the doubt for the playoff this year, but for other teams in other conferences, if you're trying to get that 4th spot and your schedule is a couple games short because of nothing you did wrong, that's going to kind of stink. And some might say not all that fair, according to the Big Ten.
And fairness is really the most important thing. It's really, Tom, the only thing we have is fairness. We talked to Harry Miller earlier this week. He was part of the Wednesday talkings with the players. I believe they call them Zoom calls. Is that right, Tom?
I believe that sounds familiar. Something I've probably done once or twice this year. Yes.
So we were talking to Harry Miller, and this guy, he's different. And I say different. He's very, very smart, well read. Goes to Nicaraguan mission trips every year. You may have seen all the music he puts out on Twitter. So he was being asked a bunch of questions, and he mentioned something he's reading right now. What he said was, I read a book yesterday on Eastern philosophy and Hinduism, and talking about all of this. And it's like, did you read the whole book on this yesterday, or did you read some of it? Did you finish it, or was it a small book? And then he's just going off on, I'd like to start a book club, and maybe I can. He's can relate more to his mechanical engineering classmates that is for his major, rather than, there's not a lot of guys on the football team to talk about Hinduism and Eastern philosophy, basically, I think was the gist, and just talking about all of these different things. And the entire time I'm thinking, please don't call on me next, because I'm just going to ask about football. Like, let somebody else get back to football, because I don't want to. He's going all deep into this, and then I'm going to be like, hey, Harry, what do you think about the running game? And then just everything comes crashing back to earth, and then he has to get back into that. So I'm glad somebody else because I believe whoever it was like, well, I don't even know how to follow that. I'm just going to ask about football, and that's how you get back to it. But that dude, and he. Oh, what I did ask him though was, did the game slow down for you? He was like, oh yeah. And were you surprised at how fast it was game one? He was like, yeah. And it's hard to replicate that in practice, but he's doing better. But a unique guy, Tom, that we've been talking about since before he was at Ohio State, just based on the way other people talked about him.
Yeah, I the notes that I had from our conversation with him yesterday, he says he has dreams of owning a bookstore and sailing across the Atlantic. Who are three people who have never been in my kitchen? That is, and I mean, one of the times we talked to him last year, I remember just, one of the answers just sort of ended up devolving into Nicaraguan politics, and he had some thoughts on the leaders of Nicaragua. And he had recently tweeted out a picture of his bonsai tree, and I asked him about his bonsai tree, and he was all excited to talk about his bonsai tree. Like, I mean, this is the phrase Renaissance man gets thrown around a lot, but to be a football player who is starting on a national championship contender, and also a mechanical engineering student, and also well-read on Eastern philosophy and Russian literature, and also potentially dream about sailing across the Atlantic and having a bonsai tree and being a musician, it's like, I read a book one time. It's pretty good, kind of thick. Not super, I mean, not like Dostoevsky, but it's pretty thick. It was pretty impressive. Stephen King wrote it. No big deal.
Yeah.
It's cool.
It's a different kind of Eastern philosophy. It's Maine philosophy.
Yeah, he's from Maine, so it is. Yes, it is also an Eastern culture. Yes,
you may have heard of it. It was called Pet Cemetery.
but it's sort of like a foreign language because cemetery is spelled with an S.
There you go, Tom.
Yes.
Boom. One of the things Dave said about Harry Miller today was he's got a lot of interests and he can handle it. Like not a lot of guys can. And it was almost like, some football coaches don't want players to have too many interests because
Elliot Uzelac, yes. Go on.
Elliot Uzelac, as you said. And so, but Harry Miller does not have that because he can keep up with all of it. And it was just interesting to hear Dave say that because that was one of the things that first came back to my mind when Elliot Uzelac is like, "You ain't going to school, Robert Smith. Get back onto this field." And then Robert's like, "No, I'm going to class. You can't make me just do football." And then he almost transferred to USC where he would have just been able to go to class.
Noted academic stronghold and athletics non-participator. Hey, USC has not played a single game this year.
Why didn't he go to like Stanford instead? Because back then Stanford was terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Just think. We don't need to get into the whole 1990 Ohio State 91 football drama. We can do that on a Patreon show where if somebody were to ask about it, we could get into it. But yeah, it was just. As you said, Tom, Harry is a Renaissance man, not necessarily Renaissance type, even though Master Teague also has a number of interests. Ryan Day was asked about, have you seen an improvement in Master Teague's like agility and his stuff like that? And Day was like, "Oh, that's not really his style." And he's just more of a downhill guy. I think this is on the radio show. And bigger backs, don't need to be dancing in the hole. They just need to hit the hole and go downhill. And that's more his style. And it was just funny to me, like, yeah, are you seeing more maneuverability, more elusiveness? And Dave's like, yeah, that's not really what he does.
No, he is a one cut back. It's like put your foot in the ground and go. And he is not going to be, Braxton Miller or Justin Fields and just, be throwing spin moves on people and making people miss in a phone booth. Like that's not his game. Just like Justin Fields is probably not going to be dump trucking a bunch of linebackers. Like Master Teague is not going to be dropping, hitting that circle button and spinning around people. He can run over people in a way that Justin Fields can't. And I think Ohio State has figured out. I mean, it sounds obviously like Ryan Day has figured that out, and you can use that. Like there is a way to have Master Teague. This is the old. If you thought our 1990 Ohio State reference was a little too topical, let me tell you about Glenn Davis and Doc Blanchard, Mr. Inside and Mr. Outside for Army back in the 1940s. Like you can do the Oh, fine. We'll go with USC. Thunder and Lightning, Reggie Bush and Lendale White. I mean,
thank you.
That you can. This is a thing that has worked in college football for many decades, where you've got your power guy, you've got your speed guy. Ideally you have them both, but you do not have a J.K. Dobbins or an Eddie George on your roster every year, and I don't think they necessarily have an Eddie George or a J.K. Dobbins on this roster this year, but or an Ezekiel Elliott. But that's okay. Like you can make that work. They don't need to have a 2,000-yard rusher with the way the passing game looks right now.
No, I agree with that, Tom. Let's talk a little bit about Rutgers. First of all, Tom, do you know?
Fine.
Do you know who has the nation's best rush defense right now?
You're setting me up as if the answer is Rutgers, but I feel like I read you on Twitter or the board say that Rutgers is the fourth best. So I'm going to say no, I don't know. I'm going to say that with a high degree of confidence.
You are wrong. You do know. Actually, the answer as of today, thanks to last night, is Kent State, who's only allowing 61 yards rushing per game. But I don't know that we can count that just yet. So that moves Rutgers down to 5 nationally in terms of rushing yards, giving up 79.5 yards rushing per game. Now, Tom, do you think some of that has to do with the fact that Rutgers has played Indiana and Michigan State, maybe?
Maybe in a game where Michigan State thought it was playing basketball and kept trying to dribble the ball in the running game. Yeah, that may also have had something to do with it. Yeah. I have a sense Rutgers may not be fourth in national rushing defense after Saturday night. That's my guess, but only one way to find out. Let's watch some Rutgers.
Got to play the games. They're only allowing 2 yards per carry, and maybe that will go up after this game. But if it doesn't, we've seen Ohio State's running game struggle. We know the running backs aren't very good, and so maybe this is just another episode where Rutgers slows down an average offense. We'll see. It might not be that way. And when I say Ohio State's running backs aren't very good, I'm just joking. Okay, just relax. All right, it's Rutgers week. Okay, we've got to build this up and create our own energy, bring our own juice. But Tom, for me in this game, I think it just comes down to the fact that Noah Vedral, their quarterback, is going to have a long night of harassment. And kind of like when back in the day when you would go to the outer end and just people would just not leave you alone. Just, hey, Tom, what's up, Tommy? Just like, please, I'm just trying to drink in peace here. All right.
Yes. So, and much like some nights at the outer end, this evening may end with Rutgers face down in the gutter. That's a possibility.
They need to put the ropes back up on the sidewalks on campus.
I mean, that's an act of prevention. I'm not sure that is the actual cause. The lack of ropes. I'm not sure that's the actual cause of what's going to happen to Rutgers on Saturday, but we'll see. I talked to Alex Gleitman on the morning show for Wednesday, and he kind of went through a lot of the transfers that they've had. They've bolstered their team quite a bit with transfers this year, because it turns out Rutgers was not a Big Ten caliber football team last year. Who knew? Who among us could have known? But they have brought in a bunch of skill talent. I mean, you mentioned Noah Vedral from Nebraska, Aaron Cruikshank from Wisconsin. I mean, they've got some playmakers on offense. Where they don't really have the talent is on the offensive line. And that's just like, sorry, if you cannot move the defensive line off the ball, you're not going to run it. If you cannot pass protect, they're going to be limited to kind of quick game stuff probably on Saturday, which then means Ohio State can also figure out that they're going to be limited to quick game stuff, come a little closer to the line, make that harder to go, harder to do. It seems like it's going to be very hard for Rutgers to move the ball on Saturday. And, I just looked and we got the email from Mark Giffler asking us for a staff predictions. I haven't even thought about it yet. And it's like, I'm already getting angsty because it's like, well, the score could be whatever Ohio State wants the score to be. But what is Ohio State? The question is not what could Ohio State going to do? The question is, what will Ohio State decide is sufficient before they want to put in their, bring in their backups? And then when the backups come in, how true to the game plan are they going to stay versus how much are they going to try and just get the game over with. So, what's the line? It was last time I looked, it was in the high 30s, something like that, high 30s, low 40s. So, something around there.
Yeah, I had to give my prediction, my score yesterday on the Mark Rogers show, and it's the same thing. It's like, well, how many touchdown drives will the backup quarterbacks lead? Like, will it be C.J. Stroud finally getting his first action? And I think whoever you do put in there, you're going to have to throw it a little bit just to get them that experience. And then, Tom, of course, then you apologize afterwards for scoring any amount of touchdowns that you do with your backups, and then you just deal with it then. ESPN does not have the lineup for the Rutgers Ohio State game. I don't know what that means. Sometimes they just don't. But it was like 37 or something. I don't know what it is now. I think I went 56-7 based on what does Justin Fields lead them to 5 touchdown drives, and then maybe there's a defensive score, and then do maybe the backups do 2 drives of scores, or maybe Fields leads them to 42 points before he's gone. I kind of feel like the defense is going to score, or at least put them in an advantageous position, kind of like Marcus Hooker did last week against Penn State. And there's Brendan White has been playing well at free safety, but it's him. Ryan Day said the corners are pretty good. We know one of them was a former Ohio State commit / signee, but didn't get in and then changed his name. And so you probably won't even recognize him. Don't worry about it.
His old name was Kareem Felder. His new name is Trey Avery.
Yep. And so when you see Chris Olave scoring with a guy named Avery on his back, like 4 yards behind him, that's who that was, a former Kerry Combs commit. And that was, man, you look back at that class, and I don't remember if it was like 16 or 17. Defensive backs were wouldn't have been 17. I think it would have been maybe 16. Very reachy. Felder and some other guys in there that weren't all that great. But really, Tom, I'm with you. It's whatever Ohio State wants to do, and whatever they want to accomplish with the backups. And does somebody bust one? Does Steel Chambers bust one? Do we get to see Mayan Williams? Maybe. And does Julian Fleming take a hitch and go 40 yards, something like that? And really, that then dictates for me the final score, whether somebody makes a big play, whether there's a defensive score, because I don't know that Ohio State needs their offense to do more than, I think 42 points is good enough to just shut it down at that point in terms of the starters. And then it's up to the second and third teams to score more and not give up more. That's why I went 56-7. Rutgers will get a touchdown somewhere. Isaiah Pacheco will bust through for like a 60-yarder, or C.J. Stroud will throw a pick 6, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably about right. That seems like that's where these games generally end up. Rutgers scored 21 last year, which was like, how?
That was an odd game. Nobody wanted to be there.
That was very much Ohio State had. I think Ohio State was up 14-0 or 21-0, like very early in that game, and it was just like, all right, well, this one's over. And then Ohio State actually said out loud, well, this one's over. And then Rutgers scored a couple touchdowns, and it was like, oh, well. And then, as soon as Ohio State needed to put their foot on the gas, it was just like, no, hey, they just scored 14 points in like 3 seconds. I don't know how that's even possible. Rutgers has not scored a touchdown in Columbus since 2014, which was that was a while ago. And I mean, it's a matter of does Rutgers score one, in the fourth quarter of the game, or is this like I think it was 2017 when you and I went to the Ohio State Rutgers game, and I think it was a shutout, and Chris Ash tried to kick a field goal on like the last play of the game, and doinked one off the field, off the upright, and ended up losing. I think it was a shutout. So yeah, it's 56-7 sounds about right. I'll pick something else just because that's right about in the neighborhood where I was going to go. I might dial it back a little bit just because I think they'll probably ease off the gas a little. Just looked up that 2016 Ohio State recruiting class. Here are the corners. You tell me if Gerd was being harsh by saying not great. Ready? Scrolling down. Wayne Davis.
Wayne Davis, yes.
Who transferred to James Madison, I believe. He transferred to an FCS school. Rajay Burns, who had a pick six in his first game against Bowling Green and then transferred to Louisville. And Trey Avery, who didn't actually enroll and is now at Rutgers. So yeah, zero career starts. That's not what you're looking for in terms of a recruiting class at a position group. So
no, that's Rutgers. We'll see how the game turns out. I'm just looking at Twitter right now, and Chris Holtman has updated Jimmy Sotos, the transfer point guard from Bucknell, I believe, has had his waiver approved after having his waiver denied previously, which is good news considering Abel Porter, their other transfer point guard, was medically disqualified for a heart condition. So they get some good news a day after getting some bad news. So that's good for them because they need depth at that point guard position. And Tom, before we go, let's hit the recruiting side of things, as the Buckeyes landed a commitment from 4-star tight end Benji Gosnell Wednesday at like 8 p.m. via his Instagram live out of Pilot Mountain, North Carolina. Tom, I love traveling to wherever I'm going on the East Coast, to North Carolina or Florida or Georgia. Driving by Pilot Mountain is always a thing because it's a neat looking place. And so congratulations to a guy who lives at a place with a neat looking mountain thing. The number 265 player overall, number 11 tight end, number 9 player in the state, and most importantly, like the number 1, 2, or 3 tight end target for the Buckeyes this year.
Yeah, and this is the second tight end they've gotten for 2022. They already had Bennett Christian, so they have 2 of the top 20 tight ends for the class of 2022. That's not bad. I was sort of gaming out the depth chart and what that could look like when these guys show up. Ready to feel old? Cade Stouffer will be in his 4th year when these guys show up. Joe Royer will be in his 3rd. Sam Hart will be in his 2nd. And then Benji Gosnell and Bennett Christian will be freshmen in 2022. And, you would assume at that point the scholarship numbers are basically probably more or less back to normal. But, you need to take minimally 1 per year at tight end, like minimally, because you need to have 4 guys there, I would say, at least. And they're losing Luke Farrell. They're going to lose Jake Hausman. They're going to lose Jeremy Ruckert before that time. So you've got to rebuild that room, and you probably need to take 2. This may be like quarterback, where you need to take 2 every once in a while, just because you never know with injury, you never know with attrition, like transfer portal, whatever. You don't want to be down to 3 at any point. So you probably need to take 2 at some point. There was some talk they might take 2 for 2021. Now they've done it for 2022. So now they're probably all set for 21. There were some other names that had been sort of bandied about, Hudson Wolf and names like that, but those did not pan out. So now they've got their 2 for 2022. And I mean, from my understanding, it sounds like from our recruiting guys, these guys were right near the top of their board, both of them at the tight end position. So that's good. 2022, the year of the tight end.
Finally. And they, like you said, they've been looking at taking a couple of tight ends. I think there was some talk that maybe they would have done it in 2020, but they chose between Joe Royer and Luke Lachey. Buckeye Legacy basically had them work out together at a camp and went with Royer instead. And then, they would have taken the right 2 in 2021. Doesn't look like that's going to happen. So this was a good decision by them, assuming it sticks. Mick Walker talked with Gosnell, and there was some good information there that you can find on BuckeyeScoop.com of Bennett Christian just like recruiting him and saying, hey, we could be like this really good duo. I go back to like Jeff Hireman and Nick Vanette, who I'm pretty sure were in the same class. Vanette ended up redshirting and being put a year behind him, but those 2 together were really good, just as Ruckert and Luke Farrell are very good. And it's more of that culture thing where you guys kind of just recruit each other, and it doesn't matter if there's more than one guy at a position, as we're seeing with Travion Henderson and Evan Pryor in the 2021 class, where they are close and they are okay with sharing carries, and this is kind of a draw. And so that's always interesting to see. And then there could be more news this weekend, Tom.
Yes, Derrick Davis, 2021 safety out of Pittsburgh, the Pittsburgh area. He plays at Gateway High School just east of Pittsburgh. He is announcing on Saturday. his finalists include LSU, but it sounds like it's probably a Penn State, Ohio State final decision, more or less. I just saw him last week. Mark Givler and I went and stopped and saw him on our way to Penn State last weekend. So I just watched him in person last Friday. And, he is, sometimes you watch these games and it's like, yeah, I mean, I guess he's okay. This was opening drive. They got the ball. He took a swing pass and like jetted down the sidelines, took a handoff on offense as a running back, kind of got the corner, hit beat everyone to the pylon. And then on the other team's opening possession, had an interception in the end zone to prevent a touchdown. And it was just, this is like 5 minutes into the game. I was like, I found the guy who's a Power 5 recruit. Yeah, good guy. My trained eye has located the guy who is far better at football than everyone else on the field right now. And this is Western Pennsylvania. This is a pretty good league, and Gateway's a pretty good program that churns out some pretty decent talent a lot of times in a lot of years. So yeah, he sure looked like the real deal to me. And Mark, who is better at this than I am, came away with the same thought. We'll see that he's played it very, very, very close to the vest. No one has put in a crystal ball since June. Mark has been kind of more consistently optimistic about Ohio State's chances than most other people have, but we'll that as far as a final call on that, I think I may have Mark on the morning show on Friday to give his final call on that. If not, he'll do that probably on the Gives in the Bank podcast on Friday.
Yeah, it's always fun discovering these guys and being the first to see them. I remember discovering CJ Hicks. It was September or October of this year. I went to his game, and right away he stood out. Had a tackle for loss, a sack, almost returned a punt return for a touchdown, had an interception for a pick six. And it's like, I don't know if anybody knows who this kid is, but he is special. And lo and behold, it turns out I believe he had already been committed to Ohio State at that point. So who was first to discover him? I don't know.
May have been rated a top 5 overall player in the nation by rivals by that point. But, clearly they had a feeling that was going to be your evaluation and adjusted accordingly.
That's true. I do have connections at rivals. And I said, hey, I'm going to go see the CJ Hicks kid. You might want to bump up his rankings because I haven't seen him yet, but I got a pretty good feeling he's going to look very good. And he did. And the rest is history. I'm not the only person, obviously, who discovered him, but I was probably one of the first 600 to 700, let's just say. So that'll do that, Tom. That'll do that for this show. I'm tired of bragging about myself. We can do that. We'll be recording a Patreon show previewing the weekend's games, and I can do more of that on that show, if that's okay.
Yeah, if you want to hear more about Tony talking about how great Tony is, just go to patreon.com/Buckeye Weekly and sign up for a subscription there. It's just a couple bucks a month, and I will once again share my life hack. You get billed on the first of the month, so you can sign up now, patreon.com/Buckeye Weekly. You get a free first few weeks for free, see if you like it, and then adjust your spending accordingly at the end of the month if you decide it's worth sticking around for. But we do at least one extra show a week during the season, previewing kind of the weekend's games. So that's usually a good time, and do some picks against the spread and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it should be a good time. You can join us at patreon.com/Buckeye Weekly.
And we enjoy it. And Tom, tell everybody who's going to be on the Morning Scoop on Friday.
Well, I just floated the idea that it might be Mark Givler. I guess I should, if I can't get Mark, I'll always, I have a fallback, and I can have Tony on the show. So we'll see one or the other. It'll be fine.
Give a call to good old Regis, and he'll come running. And
I had Bill Bender, the great Bill Bender of the Sporting News, on Thursday morning show. Bill is one of our absolute favorites. Our neighbor in the press box during typical years at Ohio Stadium, and just a great guy. Has written some really interesting stuff the last week. One of them was basically, has Ohio State ruined the rest of the Big Ten by being too good? And another one was about how Michigan, that was the worst loss of the Jim Harbaugh era, and it wasn't particularly close. So it seems like topics that Ohio State fans might both enjoy hearing about. So we did that, and we also previewed some of this weekend's games: the Clemson game against Notre Dame, the cocktail party, Florida and Georgia. So you can find that. That's the Morning Scoop podcast. That's on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, all the places you find podcasts. You can just search the Morning Scoop or Buckeye Scoop to find that there.
And we will get out here, but Tom, real quick, I think there's an argument to be made that both Ohio State and Michigan have ruined the Big Ten in their own unique ways. Who would you say has been more effective at it?
Yeah, well, this is Ohio State Rutgers week is like the two polar opposite ends of this is the two polar opposite ends of the same line that having the same effect. I'm gonna say Rutgers has ruined it more than Ohio State, just by being Rutgers and making us drive all the way across Pennsylvania. But yeah, I mean, Ohio State has done it in its own way.
But did I say Rutgers or Michigan? I meant to say Michigan.
I said Rutgers.
Oh, so you went away from it. Okay, all right, good. Then a good unique answer. And I am so tired of your Rutgers bashing, but I look forward to doing more of it the next show, and then for our preview, and then probably our post game, and probably for weeks on end after that as well.
Why would we talk about Rutgers in the post game when it'll be Maryland week, baby? Oh yeah.
All right, that'll do it, Tom. I can't talk about Maryland yet. So we will thank you all for listening. Thank you all for watching, and have a good one. We will talk to you soon.